All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Tim, thanks for being here with me. I'm here with Tim Letzring. I'm Joel Delin, the CEO of Kuali. Tim, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Tim Letzring, Senior Vice Provost for Academic Affairs at the University of Central Florida.
Appreciate you being with us. We're talking about curriculum management at scale. UCF is obviously a huge university in Florida and has been using curriculum management and catalog and has started now using Kuali Build. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I just want to give a couple of housekeeping details. The session is going to be recorded and we'll send it to those who have registered. We ask you to keep your Zoom on mute and to ask us any questions. We'll be monitoring questions throughout. This will be a conversation between me and Tim. So look forward to answering your questions and giving those to Tim. And then we'll send a copy of the recording to those who are registered. Here's the premise of Kuali and curriculum management. We think it's time for higher ed software to be delightful. And we feel like it hasn't been in the past. Specifically, curriculum changes in the past have been slow. Getting approvals takes just a long time. And then generating catalogs is time consuming and error prone, and software ought to help that. So why Kuali? We have a curriculum management and catalog system that we're talking about today. We feel our software is easier and more joyful for faculty to use. We've got more powerful reporting, and it's easier to move data in and out of other systems. And then the last thing is it's an easier and more joyful design process for designing workflows and designing forms. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to go through a few slides, and then we'll have a conversation.
Thanks, Joel. Start my slideshow here because I wanted to give some context of who we are. So in case you aren't aware of who University of Central Florida is, this is our kind of our part of our current strategic plan statement about becoming a university for the future. So here's our student enrollment trajectory. This was 2021, where we actually hit 72,000 students. And we hit that accidentally. If you remember, 2020 was a weird year through the pandemic, and not everybody thought students were going to come back. So all our students did come back, plus some additional ones. Here's some other growth areas through 2021. We hit 364,000 degrees awarded. Our research funding hit 204 million, and our we're now in MSI, but back in 2021, our minority enrollment was at 48.5%, not including international. We're also a metropolitan research university, so we have 4 campuses in and around the main campuses over on the east side of Orange County. We have a downtown campus. Our award-winning Rosen College of Hospitality Management is down near all the entertainment area. And then we have our health science campus, which has our medical school, and our new nursing school is being built as we speak there. Here's our current facts. We went back up over 70,000 students this year. We've awarded over 400,000 degrees. There's our SAT GPA. We are, as officially this year, a minority serving institution. Our white students are 42.5%. And then there's some of our accolades that we received over the year. That #2 for hospitality and tourism management programs from Shanghai. We're also one of the top 5 in U.S. News & World Report in innovation among public institutions. We've extended our research funding. We're also a top institution when it comes to patents awarded, both across the U.S. and public and across the world. And then we're also very strong in our partnerships that I wanted to point out. So we have 6 state college partners. So in Florida, our state colleges used to be community colleges. They now do offer some 4-year degrees. Those 6 states, Valencia, Seminole, Eastern Florida, Lake Sumter, there are key partners where those students have a path to transfer. And that's important for us because we admit pre-pandemic, we admitted about 6,000 full-time first-year students, and we admit about 12,000 transfer students, mainly from these 6 partners every year. So every year we had about 18,000 new students come to UCF. That's flipped since the pandemic. We admit about 8,000 full-time students for first-year students, and we admit about 10,000 transfer students as a result of change in demographics and change. There's some of our other partners that we have across this area. We are a huge part of Central Florida. 29% of Kennedy Space Center employees are UCF grads. We're one of the largest suppliers of graduates to the aerospace industry. And then we have others around Disney, Boeing, SpaceX, along that key area around where we are in Central Florida. And connected to that is the partnership that we have now with Kuali. And I'm gonna stop sharing. We can start a conversation.
Yeah, that sounds great. So tell us, I didn't realize that you were #1 in video game design. So this has nothing.
We are the FIA program.
Was that intentional? Did you have a faculty that was super into that? How did you fall into that?
Yeah, it was just, it happened over time, and the state of Florida actually helped fund it 14 years ago. There was a special funding for it, created the Florida Institute for Entertainment Academy, Interactive Entertainment Academy, FIA, and it's just had taken exploded. It's now downtown. In fact, esports and another video game company that's lost its name moved its headquarters to downtown Orlando to be next to FIA.
Wow.
So yeah.
Cool, thanks. So tell us about the curriculum management journey. What were you doing at the time you started thinking about our curriculum management tool, and why did you decide to move down that path?
So I can laugh at this now, but this wasn't funny when it started. So I arrived August 1st of 2019 as in the provost office. And on August 16th, I was told I needed to be at a meeting. That meeting was to tell us that our catalog was wrong and that the SAS we had in place had not worked, and that all the work that all the curriculum management stuff that we had done from 18-19 did not move into the catalog correctly, and that I was part of this. I was going to lead the team to solve it. So that was my first big project here at UCF. It became clear pretty quickly that we needed to move in a different direction, and so we did that by starting a bid process for a new vendor, new SAS, and that I'm going to share one more slide, and I'm not even going to start it. So there's the timeline. So January 2020 is when we received bids, and everybody knows what happened in March of 2020. So during that spring, we narrowed the options down to 2, but the team was pretty small. It only had 6 of us on the team, and I wasn't comfortable with us making the decision. So I expanded the team to over 20 to help us figure out which direction to go. That included faculty, it included some associate deans from different colleges. Based upon how important this was, we needed some buy-in and how critical this part was. And I also made sure, which was not done, I found out was not done the prior process, I made sure we had IT involved, especially in the bid process, to make sure we were asking the right questions. So then you can see the rest of it.
I want to interrupt real quick. Do you have any thoughts or advice on good ways to involve faculty in a decision like this? You can stop sharing if you want. Advice for how do you involve faculty in a way that makes them feel empowered and involved without it going awry? And the same thing with IT. How do you involve IT?
So that was one of the assets that I had, is I had, even by the time we got to that point, that first year, I had developed some very good relationships because of my work on the university undergraduate policy committee and the undergraduate course review committee some good, some very good relationships with associate deans who are also faculty and also other faculty. And so I just used those relationships to bring them in and told them to make sure they got feedback from others. In other words, you're part of the committee, but look at yourself as a representative for others, both in your department or in your college. And so that's how that worked. And that was the other reason why we took our time of going through that process, was because we really wanted to make sure we did this right. Because even if you get the right product, lack of buy-in can still make the process difficult, because it's always it can be viewed with more skepticism than it deserves. And so that was that's one of the rationales behind that.
Cool. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And so we really started, because it was 2020, procurement took longer. We had a new rule in place from our boards where they really didn't like us prepaying for software as service vendors before we got anything. So Joel helped us out by giving us some licenses to build, to help give us something that we had that we could purchase. That whole process was new to me, and so part of it was me, part of it was just being large and a little bureaucratic. So we started our implementation process in January of 2021. And so we went through that, and it still took from that point on, it took a full 2 years to be fully implemented into both CEM and catalog. So if you remember, our catalog wasn't correct. So we had to input our catalog manually into Kuali that first time to at least get it going. You can use freeform text if you want, that's quicker, but it eliminates the benefits of having the links between courses into programs and the credit hour calculations and all of that. So we had our first CM went live fall of 2021. And I will say, in preparation for this, I polled 2 of our key users of Kuali, and one of the things that we really benefited from was the dynamic forms that are used within the CM. Because I think, and I don't remember this exactly, but I think in our prior processes, both in our prior SAS and then in our homegrown method, we had like 5 or 6 forms, and now we're down to 2. We have a program form and we have a course form. And when you load up that course form, it asks, the first question it asks, is this a graduate course or an undergraduate course? And then based upon how you select that box, the form opens up. And then based upon how you answer other questions, the form changes all the way throughout. That's a very powerful tool. But because it's powerful, it's also complicated to create. And so it took us probably 2 years to get it the way it really needed to be, because you think you're doing it correctly, and then you find out that first year, well, we should have asked this first, then asked this. So the layers are very powerful, but it just takes time, and you don't want to change it in the middle of your academic year, because you've got proposals in the system that you don't want to break or mess up. So that's what we use summer for. So we use summer. This is the first summer we didn't have a focused Kuali update time, because we had some other projects that we're working on, and we're pretty happy with where the forms are right now.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we like to think about is when you roll out a system like this, to say that we're done in 2 years, to me, we're done in infinity, because we always want to be just improving and cycling, in decreasing our cycling times as much as possible. So that's why we focused on a form tool that's as configurable as you're talking about. For those who aren't aware, the Kuali curriculum management forms are super, super flexible. You can have it, if somebody clicks this, whole sections disappear or appear based on things that have been typed into the forms. And that's what Tim's talking about. Tim, do you have a sense for, because of the configuration of the forms, has it saved you time? Has it saved you complaints? What kind of benefits have you seen specifically because of the form capabilities?
So the main thing that it saved us is it's easy for faculty when they fill it out. They've only got to go to one place. And so, and that was the other thing, that one of our program coordinators oversees the undergraduate side, the other one oversees the graduate side. And that's what they said, is that it's once you get it set up, it's pretty intuitive and easy for faculty to use and fill out. And so they don't have to have a whole lot of training on the form. So that's one place where it saves time. And then when you do need to make those continuous improvement areas, you have one form to work on. It's on either on the program side or the course side. So it really does, I would call it, there's a certain level of efficiency in the fact that we were able to reduce it down to one form on each side of program modifications or program modifications or course modifications or new courses.
We've got a question here. The question is, did complaints actually decrease?
Yeah, well, I didn't get a whole lot of, yes, and here's why it decreased. Because we were moving from a place where our catalog was wrong, where we had to go in and manually update it, to now something that has worked. In fact, I've been holding off on doing this webinar until we actually saw Kuali CM create an accurate catalog. And guess what? It's done it twice now.
That's awesome.
So that was because that was our biggest issue when I arrived and took over this project, was making sure that the curriculum management process. Now, there's always issues because not everything in our catalog is fed in from CM. Okay, so that's important to understand. So there's always things that we edit, some of the non-academic curriculum stuff, but the curriculum stuff has been well done. The other philosophy that we're trying to work on changing, and I think this has helped to eradicate some of the complaints, is that we don't view the catalog as a printed book anymore. We view it as a document that if there's an error in it, either because someone did because they didn't check a box correctly, we'll update it on the fly. The only one, when we make it an archive in May, that is the official catalog for that academic year. But we've got to get away from this printed catalog mindset, because it's dynamic. It's the search engine on it is incredible. And that's the other thing that my program coordinators talked about, was that if you want to type in a word, it tells you everywhere it is, and then it automatically gives you check boxes where you can filter it by course, program, policy, and other areas. So that's been the other, myself and the associate dean of the graduate school at the time, that was both of our philosophies, is it's not a book anymore. It's dynamic, and we need to look at it that way.
And do you feel like, do you have a feel for how many of your students are accessing the catalog on their phone and how many of them are accessing on a computer?
No, I haven't looked at that data. So
There's a question.
I'm not sure.
There's a question about accreditation. Has this influenced your accreditation process?
So it's made finding things easier. And we have the ability to do some things. We haven't done it yet. Because one of the, let me give an example. So when catalogs were printed in paper, you would put word limits on things like course description and other things because you didn't want our catalog, if printed, is over 1,000 pages. And you don't, so we would put limit, and those limits would stay. And I'd go, well, why is this limit here? Well, it's because we didn't want the catalog to be printed so long. Well, now it's not printing anymore. So we can go back and we can look at putting student learning outcomes and some other things inside the catalog to have them more reflective. We haven't done that yet, but we're considering it as we move forward. We're getting through some new mandates at the state level around our general education program. And then here's another feature that we are using in our current accreditation application. So the minutes and the agenda for our curriculum policy committees are right there, and they're easy to create, somewhat easy to create, depends upon your usage assignment. Our undergraduate policy curriculum committee does our program coordinator there does a great job of creating hyperlinked agenda for those faculty who are members of that committee.
Are you using the agenda
ahead of
feature?
time? Yeah,
Are you
where
using the
it's
agenda?
hyperlinked. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and so once they get that, they just click on the link to the course revision or the new course, and it takes them straight inside to the Kuali and their acknowledgers. That's another piece on the workflow. Workflow's complicated. That's another part that will take you a while to get correct, because and it can also be dynamic to a certain extent. But we do like the options where we can send it to every member of our undergraduate curriculum review committee has access to, is sent the item, but they're not approvers. Only the chair of the committee is an approver, but they're an acknowledger. So that gives them access, and they can hit that acknowledge button if they want or not. But that's how we get them access. And that's been an important piece of our making sure we can demonstrate that faculty governance side, and it's been pretty easy for us to provide those documentations from those agenda items in minutes.
There's a couple of features that there are a couple of features that curriculum management has. One is a configurable workflow. So there's a drag and drop workflow for those who aren't familiar, where you can set up the committees that Tim is talking about, and the branching and looping that Tim is talking about, so that you can say, hey, if they fill in this form in this department, send it to this dean. But if they fill it in this department and it's a graduate thing, send it to financial aid or whatever. You can have that kind of flow, and it's all a drag and drop type of workflow experience. The second thing is you can set up the committee voting, and in the committee voting, you could say everyone has to vote yes, or 40% have to vote yes, or whatever. So that kind of committee voting and commenting is one of the features of the curriculum management tool. And then we have an agenda view. So you have the ability to create an agenda, and in it, you can add the attendees to the agenda, you can add the notes, and then the things that are supposed to be voted on. Those are just some of the features that curriculum management has. Tim, do you have a feel for your cycle time for curricular approvals? Has that changed much? The sort of, well, what does your process look like? Is it annual? Is it semi-annual? And then has the time it takes to go through it changed?
So for courses, course modifications, and program modifications, it's made things more efficient and faster. Our committees are 9-month committees, so they start in fall, but there's like on that workflow side, there's department, college, before it gets to the university-wide committees that I help work with. So during the fall, those committee, the policy program committee, and then the curriculum committee, they meet mostly once a month during the fall, but in the spring, they start meeting every other week. So they meet, and then by the time we get to March, we give them through March to get everything done. We're rethinking that not from an efficiency standpoint, but from an advising standpoint, where we want to try to get all things that are going to be in the next catalog. So the March is the cutoff. So for this year to be March 2025, that'll be the cutoff for things to move into the fall 2025 catalog. But we have a whole lot of orientations and admissions, things that go on during the spring. And so we're thinking that we may back that up even more to make sure that our advisors and our success coaches know what those changes are that will be in place for the fall, so that they can advise better for the fall. But that allows us to do that. I'm still working with the associate deans on that side. But on the course, both modification and new, and program modifications, it's definitely much more efficient. On the new program proposal, that's a state level process. We have to do it. We put it in Kuali for it to go through the internal approval process, but it still has to be a paper document that's submitted to our boards. So that part hasn't been able to improve that side as much, mainly because it just requires external approval processes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you finding that any of your committees are doing more asynchronously than they used to? Or are they still all reliant on meetings and?
No, we're still relying on meetings because of the charter that we're given from the faculty senate. So both of those committees that I mentioned, and then also the graduate program committees as well, those are chartered by our faculty senate, and so they require minutes. They require in-person meetings with votes.
And do you wish that were different, or does it matter? Is it a fine process in your view?
I'd like to explore the asynchronous. Once we went to virtual meetings, the meetings are virtual, so we don't ever have any. Well, I take that back. We did have one issue with quorum once, but when it was in person, as we got closer to the end of the semester, we began running into quorum issues. Now that we've moved virtual for all those committees, and then because it's virtual and we got the agenda tool within Kuali, we just throw that up on the screen and we go through the agenda together, and it's all linked. In fact, Danielle, the program coordinator for the undergraduate side, does, if there's a vote to do something and it's approved, she'll do it on the fly and it'll be done right then in front of the whole committee, and they can see that it's done. So that's been a real advantage that was an advantage from the pandemic, moving to virtual and keeping that method. It does decrease the conversations around things, but I think I think faculty are getting better at that.
There's a question about implementation and training. What was your experience in implementation and training?
So implementation took us a long time, and part of that had to do with who we are and our scale, and also wanting to do it right. So in summer of 2021, we had to manually input the catalog. That was a big undertaking. But CM did go active that fall of 2021. So we had our first, all the faculty were trained, but Danielle and Emily oversees the graduate side on Kuali. They had created some videos, and they will both say that the faculty grasped it very quickly on how to do things. We did have, what was one of their suggestions? Oh yeah, there's a concept of create a new version or create a new revision. those two phrases were too close together. We've tried to create a new revision because we never use it, or we told them not to use it. But every now and then, the faculty member still uses it, so we have to tell them to go start all over. But those are just kind of some of those different processes that you deal with through the implementation. And then from that point on, well, I was reminding Joel of this earlier, we also went through technically four, because Joel reminded me we had one for a short amount of time, 4 program managers on Kuali side, because it was 2020 and 2021, and IT industry was having a hard time keeping staff. So they were all great, and they work with us very well. But you're still always transitioning into a new person, and then plus our own side of things. Our biggest implementation issue was on us, and that's our PeopleSoft SIS. It's it's been in place long before I got here. And for those of you who maybe use PeopleSoft, by the time it gets this old, it's a custom piece of software that can be difficult times to work with other forms of technology. And so it required quite a bit of work on our IT side. And that was one of the reasons why I made sure IT was connected and involved in our conversations, because it made part of that process definitely go smoother, and some things worked very well. One of our associate registrar had noted to me not long after we moved into, not long after, I think it was 2021 or 2022, there was some process where every time a course was modified or created, I think it was created, she had to do something manually. And that's all I remember. Now she doesn't. So those are the kinds of efficiencies that we want to look for when you're looking for a CM catalog process.
Awesome. Rhonda, it must be a customer. Rhonda says, but the comment feature is awesome. I think she was talking about back to where you were talking about the collaboration. Are people using the comment feature?
Well, so our meetings are done within Teams as our official team. So we have the comment feature, but they're held in Teams because that's our repository. So because it's a committee under Florida Sunshine Laws, it has to keep minutes and has to do certain things. So we utilize the comments in Teams, which is where the meeting actually occurs. And there are comments within Kuali. I know what comment you're talking about, but from a meeting standpoint, we use the Teams comments, but we do recognize when there are comments put in through the process. Yes, it's a good feature. Yeah.
I see. And so your approval times, I'm hearing it got more efficient with courses, but I'm not sure how it got more efficient, because they were waiting for the monthly meetings, and then they got semi-monthly in the spring. So how did that become more efficient for courses?
So it's just it's the approval workflow.
I see.
It didn't take as long. Once it get past the UCRC, it doesn't take as long to get it into and ready for the next fall catalog. In other words, I approved some things last Friday that are ready to go. Whereas under the prior system, it would have taken a little bit longer for them to get through the rest of the processes after the committee. So you got the registrar, you've got our institutional effectiveness, you got our APQ, you got other areas that have to do some things with a new course or a new or modified program, our degree audits. They all have things to do after it's been approved. The quicker we can get those approved into Kuali and it feeds directly to them, there's no approval for them. They just begin implementing things and getting things ready for the next fall. So it's moved, instead of everybody panicking and having to get everything ready in May, it's spread further out across the whole year, where some things are already ready for next fall that everything would have been bunched up, and then everything would have to be done all at once.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. There's a question about support. What, how do you question that?
So this was the first thing that Danielle and Emily said, or it was definitely in the top two or three. That was the best part about Kuali, is their responsiveness is within minutes, hour, and they're always there to work with you, and that was very important based upon what we'd gone through before. So yeah, there's the support is always there. You put in a ticket and the response is very fast.
That makes me happy to hear. There's a question about reporting. What is it like to get data out of the system?
So I haven't done the reporting, and we've run some reports. I'm just going to see where they had. That's an area that we could probably explore more. Um, we haven't done a whole lot of reports. Um, well, actually, wouldn't say we haven't widely used it yet. So so we don't really have um,
Yeah, happy to engage with you on those. There's a lot of cool stuff. So
yeah.
let us know if you want to engage. There's a
Okay.
question. We have to manage overlapping years. Is it possible to create and manage multiple catalogs or curriculum versions simultaneously?
So we do not. Um, so, so because we don't, I don't know the answer to that question, if that's
Okay.
even possible. My
Okay.
guess is that you might be able to. I don't know how you'd put that into your workflow. You
You,
might want to reach out to. Yeah.
yeah, the answer is you can. So you can
Yeah.
do overlapping years, overlapping terms. There's a lot of flexibility in how we do terms, and then
Yeah.
also in how you do catalogs. You can have multiple catalogs and
Now we do have multiple catalogs because we have a graduate catalog and we have an undergraduate catalog. Our our CE is looking at having their own catalog. Continuing education now is looking at having their own catalog. So yeah, we do definitely have multiple catalogs.
we've got just a few minutes left. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and list them. I think this is another customer who says one of the most useful features is the dependencies it sold us.
That, in fact, one of the program coordinators put that on their list as well, and I use it all the time because when a program wants to change it, so and I'll explain how. One of the ways that we use it, the department wants to modify a course or delete a course, that's the first thing that we need to look at is the dependencies, because if a program in another college is using that as part of their program, we need to know it. And that is a very effective tool, because as soon as it shows up, you scroll down, it'll give you not only dependencies of prerequisites, it'll also give you dependencies of programs that use it, and and then you can click on it and see whether they're using it as an elective or if they're using it as a required.
Okay. Um, how do you, is there a way to quantify what that looked like before and what it looks like now? Is does it just save in errors? Does it save in time? Does it save in frustration?
So it definitely saves in errors, because you're not, well, let's go back to the complaint question. If we didn't have that dependency and we didn't make sure that that decision was made by the full board, full committee, not put it on consent agenda, because we use a consent agenda for minor changes, and we make that change, and then we find out the next year when the catalog goes live that that course is removed, but this program was using it, there's a complaint.
Hmm.
So it saves us on those on having to go, oh well, making sure you have those, and basically all it does is then it prompts me to say to tell that department to change that. You need to have a conversation with this department that's using your course
Hmm.
to find out if they have some alternatives, and how important is it. just have those conversations around, across departments. If it's within the same college, it's usually not an issue because those conversations should have already occurred as it comes up through the college decision-making process. It's when it's across different colleges that can become an issue and generate, like the prior question said, generate some complaints because we didn't see it. Now we can see it and we can bring that to different leaders' attentions along the way.
For those who aren't aware, we have an automatic dependency analysis. So when you're looking to make a change to a course or to a program, it automatically shows you all of the other programs or courses that are dependent on this one. And there are multiple things you can do with that. You can actually reach out to those people and let them know, or you can trigger something in the workflow automatically that will send notifications to different program coordinators or deans or whomever you want to let them know there is a change happening. And then you can either give them a say, they could say, no, we're going to reject that change, or you could just ask them to comment, things like that. So the workflow gives you the configuration to drive a workflow off of the dependencies. So you both see the dependencies, but you also drive a workflow off the dependencies. We have too many questions to be able to answer all of them. There's another one that says, does Kuali support development of syllabus using the course inventory form info? The answer is that we do. UCF is not currently using that. Maybe it's something we should talk about, but we do have an inventory, or we have a syllabus tool. Now you can put a sample syllabus into the curriculum management system if you want to, but you can also create a repository for syllabi from different faculty or different staff members that are teaching different sections. You can also create a template. So you can be as prescriptive or as lenient as you want to in your syllabus using the syllabus tool. Okay, one other question, then we're going to have you summarize, Tim. How are prerequisites managed? Can you expand on this?
So within the course form tool, there is a section on prerequisites. And so if you develop a course, either new or modified, there's a prerequisite section within the form that we've developed. And then the advantage of that is that as soon as you start typing it in, the course, because it's already in CM, they start appearing by prefix, and then you select the one that's the prerequisite, and then it's there, and then it becomes part of the rule. I'll tell you another thing that connected to prerequisites. We have, the state of Florida requires a 36-hour general education program. And each institute, there's 15 mandated hours, or 15 hours that are controlled by the state called core. You have to take so many core across 5 different areas, and then the remaining are institutional GEP. We found the rules section very effective in creating our GEP. So once we had created the rules, then we could go into every undergraduate program, and based upon how they use the GEP, insert the rules how they wanted. That took a whole lot of work. I don't know that I or Danielle are quite recovered from that amount of work, because it was a lot of work. But once you're on the other side of it, it's pretty effective in using those rules. We'd like a little bit more flexibility in some of those rules, but that's just part of continuous improvement, both on our side and also Kuali, and they're always willing to listen to us.
Yeah, there's a lot of new stuff coming in terms of configurability of rules. So we're excited about that. All right, 2 other quick things. A current customer says, when course changes number, you have to do nothing. In the past, it would trigger all sorts of prerequisite changes. What she's talking about there is when you change it, let's say you change from computer science 121 to 122, everything that's linking to that still links to it. So you can be notified, but you change the number and it doesn't trigger a bunch of changes with all the rules. The rules are quite sophisticated in being able to say, for example, in a program, the acceptance criteria for this program is you must take this, but not this. You must take 2 of these 4. You must take 3 of the science core. You can define all that in the rules. But you also, anyway, quickly talk about Build. So Build is starting to, you've just started doing some things with Build. I know there are people in other departments that are starting to use it. So I don't know if you want to mention anything about what's going on with Kuali Build at UCF.
So, well, I can mention that we had used it. In fact, our high impact practice area has been using it for quite a while. In fact, I think they have a meeting with Terry coming up to look at some ways to make it better and to
Oh,
make
cool.
sure they're using it correctly. Excuse me. And then our study abroad started using it as well as the way for faculties to submit their proposals for study abroad things. And we're also looking at it. In fact, I think myself and Danielle have a meeting with Terry this week or next week to look at it for our material and supply fees
Oh, good.
process that we need to take out of CM for a variety of reasons. And so we're looking at that. But you're correct. I haven't used it any. We had, but I've been a lot, giving it to other
Yeah.
potential
The computer science
entities.
department's looking at using it.
Well, and actually the most recent one that I think Terry had a meeting with was our College of Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And they came up and has to do with their the level, the type of faculty that colleges of medicine have. A lot of their faculty aren't paid. They're doctors at another hospital or have their own practice, but they're also affiliate faculty. So they're on the finance side. So they're exploring it as well.
Okay, last question then. Thank you, Tim. If you were to describe, if you had to justify curriculum management catalog, Build, like any of the quality tools that you're using, if you were to have to justify those in kind of a high level statement, like why should somebody go to those, or why should you be able to continue using those? How would you justify that in maybe just a couple of bullet points?
So let's go back. So the main reason was we needed a product that provided us confidence in the catalog, what was going to come out. Because that, based upon how I inherited this, that was rule one. Because when we were developing that catalog, we had to go back to the 2018 catalog as the best source. We would use the 2019 catalog as, to help with some other things. So that's one. And then two is we needed to improve our technology from an efficiency standpoint and from a recording standpoint. In other words, making sure we had evidence of when things were changed. This goes back to the accreditation question. You want to make sure you have evidence of when something is changed in case for when it comes up, both from an institutional accreditor, but a programmatic accreditor. If you change something in engineering, you want to be able to show ABET when they visit, here's where it was justified, here's where faculty governance was involved. And so we had the faculty governance structure, it just wasn't efficient. And so this allowed us to expand on that, on our innovation, on our innovative moniker that we received. There were some places that we needed to expand that in, and this was one of them.
Awesome. Tim, thank you very much for taking the time. It's been really fun to work with y'all.
Thanks, Joe.
As you know, I've been working with UCF back when I was at Instructure. We were partners with UCF.
That's right.
It's fun to be partners with y'all now, and excited for how things continue to evolve. So thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Have a good day.
All right. Take care.
All right.